Hi, my name is Javier Albornoz, and today we'll be talking about send effects in Pro Tools. We'll learn how to create and use send effects, as well as the difference between pre and post fader. The most important distinction between an insert effect and a send effect is that an insert effect only affects the audio track on which the effect is inserted into or placed on. A send effect is placed on an aux input or a send effects bus, and multiple audio tracks can be sent to that bus at varying levels. This way, not only can one effects plugin be used to affect various tracks, but you can also choose how much of the original signal and the affected signal is heard in the mix. Now let's take a look at sends. So I've bypassed my insert effects here, so they're not affecting this audio channel, my delay, and my EQ. And what I'm going to do is actually create an aux input the same way that we've created them in the past, created any type of track. We go to our track drop-down menu and we click New. Now we choose stereo. We're only creating one. We go to aux input and we will name this our reverb send effect. Create. And now it created, as you can see in our edit window, the aux input track, as well as here in our mix window, we've got our reverb send effects track. Now, just with any aux input track, it does need some routing before it's going to work. So in this case, we are going to select the input and we are going to choose bus 1 and 2. Now, rather than routing this as a bus, as in selecting the output here and busing it directly into this track, we're trying to use this bus 1 and 2 as a send, where we can choose how much of the signal we actually want to go to that group. So in a mix situation, the way we would achieve creating a bus group is different, where we would directly route them to the bus so that multiple tracks are feeding into this one fader, and that fader controls multiple tracks. Right now, let's go ahead and use the sends. So in our audio track, we're going to go to our send slot and choose that same bus 1 and 2. Now we get something interesting here we haven't seen before, and what pops up is this single fader here. Now, you see the same here in your edit window. In our send slot, we have that bus 1 and 2. What this fader is essentially it's showing how much signal is being peeled off and sent to this reverb send effect channel. So as we turn this up, we are going to send that amount of signal, in this case 32 decibels, or negative 32 decibels rather, to our reverb send effects channel. So let's play back as I turn that up. So you can see that as I was turning it up, you are starting to see some level into our reverb send effect track here, our aux input track that we created. But right now, since we don't have any plugins or anything here loaded, we are just peeling off the signal and sending more of it there. So it's not necessarily something that we really want to do right now. What we're interested in doing is actually loading an insert effect onto this send effects channel, because what that is going to lead us to do is that we are able to now peel off part of this audio track and send it here to an affected channel. So let's, in this case, choose a reverb effect. Now, send effects commonly incorporate reverb because often you want to be able to choose how much reverb you are sending, rather how much of the original audio signal you are sending to your reverb. So let's choose our reverb plugin. And now what we're going to do is start with this send effect of bus 1 and 2, our send fader, down all the way, and we're going to slowly turn it up, and you're going to start to hear how this reverb is going to start creeping in. So you notice that as I raise the level, you can start to hear how this audio signal starts to sound like it's being placed, in this case, some type of hall, so maybe like a concert hall or a convention hall. So you're hearing that kind of echo and roominess to it. So this is what's great about using this as a send effect, because you're able to really control how much reverb we are applying. Now, similar to what we did here on this delay plugin, when you apply a reverb as an insert effect directly onto your channel, you do essentially get the same kinds of results if you're using the wet and dry. So let's run an experiment and do exactly that. I've moved my reverb right onto as an insert effect onto our audio channel. So I'm going to use my wet dry essentially as the same exact control that I was just getting with my send level here. So let's try that now. So you can see how we're achieving more or less the same results. Now, what's the difference, and then why is it beneficial to use a reverb as a send effect rather than just placing it as an insert and using the wet dry control? Now, the main reason is that when you create a reverb as a send effect, you can take multiple audio tracks. Let's say we had 8 different tracks and we were looking at stems of this piece. We would be able to individually send those to the reverb with a specific amount based off of our sends. So that's a very, very useful thing. It is very CPU intensive to load multiple reverbs. So if you think that you end up loading 8 reverbs when really all you need is 1 and sending them here through the send level, you're really saving on CPU power when you're just using that one reverb. Now, of course, if you needed different reverb types and you wanted a hall versus a room reverb, that's different. And in that case, you would need to load multiple individual reverbs. But in this case, if we're trying to send multiple signals to the same type of room, definitely the way to go is as a send effect. So let's take a look at one other thing that's important when it comes to using sends, and that's the pre and post setting. So you can see here this button on my little send level fader that pops up, and you can see it says pre/post fader. Now what this means is that when this is loaded, by default it is in the post setting. If I click here, now we are in the pre-send setting. So let's put it back to post and explain what that is. So post fader means that we are grabbing this signal out of this audio track post fader, meaning after this fader has affected the track. So what that means is that when I play back, if I lower this fader, it will also be lowering anything that is sent up here to our send. So not just the original signal will disappear, but also the reverberated version of the signal will disappear. So let's do that as an experiment. turn this up so we're getting level to our reverb. Let's play back, and I'm going to lower our fader in post mode, and you'll see that all of the signal disappears. So at this point, we are no longer sending here because we have turned down our fader and all of the signal has disappeared. So let's go back and let's try the same thing and see what happens when we're in pre mode. So again, pre actually means that we are peeling off the signal that is on this track before the effects of this fader. So if you imagine that the signal lives somewhere here and we're taking it before this fader is able to affect it, that means that when I turn this fader down, we're still going to be sending to our reverb. So we get independent control of our original signal that lives on this track versus what is being sent here into our reverb. So let's try that experiment. I'm going to turn down the fader in pre mode and let's see what happens. So you can see that when my fader here, my track fader, reached all the way down where we killed all signal, we were still getting our reverb signal and our reverb signal alone. So in a way, it's very similar to this wet dry. If I were to put this as an insert, turn the signal 100% wet, we are only hearing the reverb. 50% means we're getting both, and dry or zero here, we would be getting only the original audio signal. But again, with a send, this reverb as a send, we are able to send multiple tracks to it and really have more control of automation and all the customization that you want when mixing when we're using a send effect.